Hey friends, it's Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rachel Terry and I am the author of 2 young adult fantasy books. Links will be in the description down below if you're interested. Today's video is all about The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is a Hunger Games novel, the newest one, and the reason I'm going to be doing a video on it is because it's getting a movie adaptation. So my goal for this video is to give you an overview of the plot, everything that happens, so that if you don't want to read the book but you wonder how accurate the movie is to the source material, this video will hopefully tell you that. Or if you read the book some time ago and you don't want to reread the book, this will hopefully give you a summary of what happens without having to reread the whole thing. I actually read this book in 2020 when it came out, and I remember next to nothing about it, but I'm rereading it now for this purpose of this video, even though I wasn't a huge fan of this book, and I'm hoping that the movie improves upon it. That's not to say that this book is bad. It's kind of slow, especially in comparison to the original Hunger Games books. And the reason for that is that this is more of a character study. So what is the story about? This is a prequel story to the other books in the Hunger Games series that follows Coriolanus Snow, aka President Snow. So in this book, Snow is 18 years old. He is a student at the academy and he's hoping to be able to go to university, but his family has fallen on hard times and they're very poor. And the reason for this is the rebellion. The districts rebelled against the capital. There was a war that lasted for several years, and this led to some of the families who were wealthy in the capital losing their fortunes in the districts due to the war. The rebels, we are told, were able to lay siege to the capital and basically cut it off from all food for about 2 years. Now, if you're familiar at all with the original Hunger Games concept, you know that each of the districts has sort of a product or service that they're known for. For example, District 12, where Katniss comes from, is known for coal. So obviously there are some districts that are known for agriculture and food, and because the districts were controlled by the rebels, they were able to successfully cut the capital off from access to food. So the citizens in the capital starved, basically. Times were very tough. This is a dark book for YA, and I kind of appreciate that. I think that it goes to show that YA can be dark. And obviously, if you know anything about the original trilogy, you know that this touches on some deep, dark stuff, considering that teenagers are involved. So these 2 years of siege were very difficult for people in the capital, Snow's family in particular. He is still dealing with the effects of what happened, really. He's also smaller, not as tall or as broad as he would be if he'd gotten a decent diet during this time. It definitely impacted him physically as well as emotionally. One of the things that's made mention of, and this is why I say that this is really dark, is that he witnessed a neighbor cannibalizing a maid. The maid had died in like an alleyway, and Snow saw this guy go over and cut the leg off the maid to eat it. That's how bad things were in the capital, and this is what ultimately brought about the Hunger Games. So as we know, the districts were defeated. They were not ultimately successful in overthrowing the capital, and to punish these districts for what they've done and remind them of the cost of treason, the Hunger Games were created, in which 2 children from each of the 12 districts, a boy and a girl from the age of 12 to 18, would be randomly selected to fight to the death in an arena. Now, in this book, the Hunger Games have only been around for 10 years, and they're not that well established, and they are nowhere near the Hunger Games that we know from the original. This book also explains how the Hunger Games got their name. So one of the things that's going on, at least right now in the games, is they're literally starving the tributes. They're not giving them any food. And that's partly done as a retaliation tactic, like, you starved us in the capital, we're going to starve you. So the tributes are very weak before they go into the games. And obviously that doesn't necessarily make for the best entertainment. Contrasting that to Katniss's time, they're given whatever capital foods they want, which seems kind of insulting and pointless in a way because they're just going to be thrown in an arena and expect to fight to the death anyway. But yes, in this, games are not well established, and one of the things that the capital wants is to get people to watch, because nobody's wanting to watch, and why would you? It's horrifying, it's not cheerful. Who wants to watch a bunch of kids kill each other? So one of the goals for this year's Hunger Games is to make the audience tune in. somehow give them an incentive. And part of that is the mentor program. This is the very first year in which the tributes have mentors, and this makes sense because the Hunger Games simply have not been around long enough for every tribute to have a former victor be their mentor. So Snow and some of his fellow Academy students are chosen to be mentors for these newest batch of tributes. And again, they don't have a lot to work with here because the tributes are literally starved beforehand, so they're not in great shape to fight or survive. The arena is literally just that. It's a former sports arena, and it's the same arena every year. There's not a lot of interference from the game makers like we see with Katniss. This very hands-off approach. So this year, aside from the mentor program, there's also personal interviews. Betting is introduced for the first time, and so are the sponsorship or gifts. So people can now send in special items such as food or water for the tributes that they were not able to send before. And this gets people personally involved and invested because they feel like they can help influence the outcome of the games in some way. So Snow is paired with the District 12 girl tribute named Lucy Gray Baird, who is a singer. She's not really from District 12 according to what she claims, but she's a member of this roving group of entertainers. She sings, and that makes her really popular with the audience. Snow really wants to win because his family is poor, and if he wants to avoid them losing their house due to a new tax law, and if he wants to be able to afford to go to university and thus ensure a better future for himself, he needs to win the Hunger Games. He needs Lucy Gray to win the Hunger Games for him. So he has a lot personally in writing on this. He's invested, and he comes to develop some feelings for Lucy Gray as well, but they're very creepy. It's very possessive. She's his tribute, but she goes from being just his tribute to his girl, and it's really creepy and really weird. One thing I do really like about this book is that it gives you an insight into Snow's character. It's written in third-person limited point of view, which I'm not a huge fan of, while the original trilogy was written in first-person present tense, which I'm also not a huge fan of, but in that case it actually worked because it lends a sense of urgency. When you're reading it, you feel like you're right there in the arena with Katniss. You don't know what's about to happen any more than she does. So I think it really works for that. Third-person limited means that we're only given Snow's point of view. If he's not in a scene, we don't get to see it because we only get to see what he sees and we only get to know what he thinks. So he's not a very pleasant person to spend time with per se. You definitely get hints of the person that he ultimately becomes. I think those seeds were there from the very beginning. He can do the right thing, and he certainly is not always evil. Like, he seems normal sometimes, and then something will happen that inconveniences him in some way, and you'll see his internal monologue turn on the person that he supposedly likes, and it's just really creepy, and it's really well done. I like how these little hints are dropped throughout the whole thing that basically show you how he became who he ultimately ends up being, because the signs have been here from the very beginning. So I have been reading this book for the past week, and it's really a slow process, but I'm currently on page 338. I've got a little bit more to go. So I'm just going to give you a rundown of everything that's happened so far now that we've got the background information out of the way. Okay, so I was taking notes on my phone as I was reading. We've established that Snow is poor. The district rebellion was 10 years ago. This is the first Hunger Games with mentors to try to make it more exciting and get people to watch. Snow is assigned Lucy, who sings and performs on the stage in front of the whole Capitol. Immediately after the reaping, Lucy performs a song on the stage. I don't know if they're going to include that in the movie. I know from the trailer that you see her do the bow that Katniss did, and this didn't exactly happen that way in the book, but I kind of get the feeling that they might change this scene because it felt really weird when I read it the first time, and reading it the second time it still felt jarring that this is what it is. It's the reaping, and Lucy's up on the stage singing a strange song. It didn't really fit the mood that this sort of situation warrants, but anyway, that's what she does in the book. She sings and performs on the stage in front of the whole Capitol. The Hunger Games got its name from the hunger and starvation inflicted upon the Capitol during the rebellion. Snow then goes to the train station to meet Lucy when she's brought to the capital. He goes along with them in a cage in the back of a truck. Some of the other tributes threaten to kill him, but Lucy intervenes. The tributes are dumped into the monkey house in the zoo. This is another thing that struck me when I read it the first time, and again when I was rereading it, how outlandish everything is. It feels like the capital is going above and beyond to be as callous to these tributes as possible. And I think this is partly to show how different things are now from when Katniss was in the Hunger Games. At that point, it was a well-established show. It was pure entertainment for the Capitol. And at this point, it really isn't. And the tributes are treated like animals. It's made mention when some of them are injured that they're treated by a veterinarian and not a doctor, and they're dumped in the zoo and people can just gawk at them and they're not being fed, and it's just, it seems a little over the top. But that's also another thing that I felt when they do start broadcasting the Hunger Games. They have a host this time, Lucky Flickerman, whom I'm assuming is some sort of predecessor to Caesar Flickerman, and he's just comical. It's almost like, how could somebody be real like that? He has this parrot that he brings on stage while kids are dying in the arena, and he's trying to get his parrot to tell Casca Highbottom that he's handsome. This is the kind of disconnect, and I think this might be intentional, but it's also very weird. It's weird that the children characters feel more adult than the adults. So then Snow is punished for going to the tributes, and he's given a demerit by Casca Highbottom. 3 such demerits and he will be expelled, so obviously this is not something that he wants to happen, and he can't really risk losing his chance at a better future. Snow gives Lucy food and has her sing for the cameras. At this point, the interview and sponsor gifts are not really established, but because Snow brings it up, he's basically responsible for getting this system put in place. As I said, the tributes are treated like animals, even by some of their own mentors. One of the tributes gets fed up with her mentor's taunting and manages to kill her. So we have a scene where Snow goes to visit Lucy, and when they're in the zoo, one of the tributes kills her own mentor, and then the tribute, of course, is killed for that. So Dr. Gull is the head game maker in this, and I'm pretty sure if you've seen the trailer that she's the one that was telling Snow about the prey and the predator and civilization falls apart. That's her whole thing. And she asks the students to do group assignments, and due to the death of the mentor who was killed at the zoo, they're not able to work on the project as a group, so Snow does the project by himself. And his friend Clemencia didn't know this, so they both go to Dr. Gull and say, yeah, we worked on this together like we were supposed to. As a test, Dr. Gull gets them to put their hands in a tub of snakes. Clemencia is bitten because the snakes are not familiar with her scent, because only Snow's scent was on the assignment, and so basically Dr. Gull catches them out in lying. Lucy Gray is slowly being starved in the zoo along with the other tributes. Snow's suggestion of allowing the games to be bet on and food to be delivered to the tributes in the arena are implemented. Snow sings the anthem at the funeral of the dead mentor who was killed at the zoo by her tribute. Snow then sneaks food to Lucy Gray. The tributes and mentors go into the arena together, which is a former sports arena of some kind where the games are held each year. One of the entrances has turnstiles and a voice announces, "Enjoy the show," which is probably the voice that is heard in the trailer. Bombs are then set off along the arena. Snow is trapped, pinned beneath a burning beam. Lucy rescues him. Some tributes escape. 2 tributes from District 6 are killed. 2 other mentors besides Snow are hospitalized in critical condition. 1 lost both legs, and you later learn that he died from that. After escaping, both tributes from District 1 were shot dead. The girl from 2 made it to the river and leapt the wall, only to die in the fall. Marcus, Sejanus' tribute, escaped. So let's talk a little bit about Sejanus. Sejanus is one of Snow's classmates. Snow doesn't really like him, but he's outwardly friendly enough that people think he's friends with Sejanus. Sejanus' family comes from District 2, and his father was a munitions dealer, if I remember correctly. So he profited very well in the war by supplying weapons to the capital. He could have sided with District 2, but instead he turned against the rebelling districts, and so the capital rewarded him for that. And so now Sejanus' family lives in the capital, and they're really wealthy, and Snow looks down on them for this reason. He thinks that anybody who's from the district is never going to be capital quality and they don't fit in. So because he has this connection to the district, Sejanus is really conflicted about this whole thing. He thinks the Hunger Games are wrong, and he frequently speaks out against that, which, you know, sounds like rebellion talk, and it's obviously a very dangerous thing to do. So in the explosion, his tribute, Marcus, escapes. In the hospital, Snow is visited by Clemencia, the mentor who was bitten by the snakes. The effects of the venom have changed her appearance, and she suspects Dr. Gall of trying to turn her into an experiment. Another thing that's really kind of outlandish in a way is the human-animal experiments that the Capitol does, where they turn people into like human-animal hybrids. It's really strange reading about it and hard to picture, so I don't know if they're even going to include it in the movie, but that's what Clemencia thinks Dr. Gall is trying to do to her. So then the interviews happen. Lucy Gray sings a song that captivates the audience and makes Snow jealous because her song was directed to someone that she had romantic feelings for and whom she left behind in District 12. And Snow gets irrationally, creepily jealous over this. The games finally begin. Sejanus' tribute Marcus is manacled in the arena. He has been captured. Sejanus takes it badly and storms off. He throws a chair at the TV screen, and later he sneaks into the arena. Snow is sent into the arena to retrieve Sejanus. They are both attacked by tributes, and Snow kills one by beating him to death with a wooden board, which is kind of a transformative moment for him. Dr. Gall refers to it this way. She claims that she wanted him to go in there to learn an important lesson, and that lesson is, when faced with the threat of becoming prey, see how fast we turn predator, see how fast civilization falls apart. Her whole argument is that without any control or laws, then society becomes chaos. So you have to have a set of laws that are agreed upon, and then you have to have somebody who's strong enough to enforce those laws. Sejanus' father offers a reward to the winning mentor, a full-ride scholarship to the university, which obviously appeals to Snow a great deal for the reasons that we discussed. Jessup, Lucy's fellow tribute from District 12, becomes rabid. The mentors suspect that he was bitten by a rabid raccoon at the zoo while the tributes were imprisoned there. We're told that rabies is a real problem. It became a big problem during the war. Jessup dies by falling off of the stands in the arena. The Snow's tax bill arrives, threatening them with the loss of their home. The same snakes that bit Clemencia are going to be released into the arena. Snow finds that out. And since they are not familiar with Lucy Gray's scent, Snow drops a handkerchief that she touched into the tank so that if they are in fact released into the arena, they will not harm her because they are familiar with her scent. Snow expects a reward for rescuing Sejanus, but none is given by the family. The snakes are in fact unleashed in the arena. Lucy Gray ends up as victor. The other tributes meet grisly ends through one reason or another. So Lucy Gray ends up as the victor, but Snow's deception in the games is uncovered. He gave her his mother's compact to take into the arena as a token to remember him by. And while they were at the zoo, there was rat poison laid out all over the place to try to kill off these rats that were such a big problem. But it wasn't working because the rats were too smart. But Snow partly also gave Lucy Gray the compact with the idea that she could fill it with the rat poison and use that to poison her fellow tributes in the arena, which she does on occasion. So that's partly why that's deception on his part, because he used that to influence the outcome of the games. And the handkerchief that he dropped into the tank of snakes is also uncovered as well. And as a result, Snow is sent to become a peacekeeper, which is a 20-year commitment. So he won the games, but he didn't win the fame and the fortune and the girl like he had hoped. He is going to be sent away to become a peacekeeper, and he probably won't see his family for 20 years, and so he volunteered to be assigned to District 12 because that's the district that Lucy Gray was from. So that's where I am right now. That's everything that's happened, basically. I don't know if that sounds like a lot or not, but it really doesn't feel like it reading because this book has a very slow pace. It felt like it took forever for the tributes to get to the arena, and then the Hunger Games itself was very slow. It was off to a very slow start. It wasn't the most exciting thing to watch, but again, they were working on that. This is just the infancy of what it ultimately ends up becoming. So I did remember that. I did remember Snow being sent away to become a peacekeeper, but I really don't remember what happens after this. From what I saw based on the trailer, it looked like the movie was going to be pretty accurate to what happens in the book. Things look the way they're supposed to, which I think is impressive in a way, given that as far as the buildings go and everything, there's not a lot of descriptive detail given on what things look like in this place, so you gotta have to picture it for yourself, and I found myself picturing it the way it looked in the trailer just because there's not a lot of information to go on here. But I will keep reading, I will push through and give you guys an update on how the rest of the book goes when I get there. Alright. It is sometime later now, and I have finally finished reading the book. So let's continue on with what happened. Also, I've got my snake earrings on, so we are very on brand for this book. Sejanus signs up to be a peacekeeper and meets Snow in District 12. Snow hopes to see Lucy while he's there in District 12. He specifically requested to be put there in the hopes that he'd still be able to see her. We learn the origin of the Hanging Tree Song. A rebel man set an explosion in the mines that killed 3 people and was hanged for it, and he yelled for his love, who was in the crowd, to run, but unfortunately that didn't work and she was caught as well. The Mockingjays take up the call, repeating the man's last words. Snow hates the birds and wants to use them for target practice. Snow goes to see Lucy perform. She recognizes him and is pleased to see him, but before they can reunite, her old lover arrives. A fight breaks out at the event, and Snow is unable to see Lucy Gray. Later, Snow meets the Covey and reunites with Lucy Gray in the meadow. She is singing The Hanging Tree when he first arrives and observes her. Lucy and Snow go back to the house where the rest of the Covey are. Sejanus is supposed to be helping Lucy Gray's cousin crack nuts. Instead, he's talking to Lucy's former lover, who has shown up at the house. He drew a map of the Peacekeeper base in the dirt, which he quickly erases when he sees that Snow noticed. Snow then confronts Sejanus over his loyalties and becoming involved with rebels who don't have the resources to even make a difference or start a new war. So Sejanus, being from the districts, really feels conflicted about this whole thing. He's starting to rethink signing up to be a peacekeeper. Originally he was like, I just want to get out of the capital. Now he's rethinking that because of the things that he might be required to do in the name of the capital, in service to the capital, and the hanging of the rebel really brought that about. And so Snow is trying to dissuade him from this path. He points out that these rebels don't even have the means to start another war. What hope do they have? Snow goes through Sejanus' things back in the barracks and finds a large amount of money hidden in a picture frame. Snow suspects Sejanus might intend to use the money to help the rebels, which would solve their lack of resources problem. Snow helps the capital scientists capture jabberjays in the woods, but none of the mockingjays, which Snow hates, are tempted into the traps. Snow goes to see the Covey perform again, and Sejanus wanders off during the show. Snow goes swimming in the lake with Lucy Gray, Sejanus, and the Covey. Sejanus confides in Snow his plan for how he can help the rebels. Snow secretly records him using the captured jabberjays. This is kind of like the turning point, I think, for Snow's character. He records Sejanus confiding his plan to help the rebels, knowing that Sejanus cannot be convinced, he's not going to turn away from this, and he really doesn't know at the time what he even intends with the jabberjay. He thinks maybe nothing will come of it, or if Sejanus' plan is uncovered, then his father, who is extremely rich and influential, will come get him out of the Peacekeepers and take him back home where he can't do any more harm. During the next Covey performance, Sejanus sneaks out to meet with the rebels. Snow follows him and Lucy Gray follows Snow. The mayor's daughter walks in on the gathering of rebels. Not wanting her to report that he was there, Snow shoots her. Lucy Gray's former lover attempts to follow a fleeing Lucy Gray, but he is shot by one of the rebels. Sejanus' treachery is discovered courtesy of Snow's jabberjay recording, and Sejanus, as a result, is hanged for treason. So whatever Snow might have thought was going to happen didn't ultimately happen, and he has to watch his friend be hanged. Meanwhile, nobody else knows how Sejanus' treachery was discovered. They don't know that it was Snow that ratted him out. And they believe that the rebel who was at the shooting, who shot and killed Lucy Gray's fleeing lover, was the one who ratted out Sejanus because they later captured him. Snow is really worried about this because the gun that he used to shoot the mayor's daughter has his DNA on it and can link him to these murders, and that would basically spell the end for him. And the rebel took the gun with him when he left, and now that the rebel has been caught, Snow expects at any moment that his part in the murders will be uncovered, but the gun wasn't with the rebel. So all Snow knows is that the gun is out there somewhere, and if it's ever found it could implicate him. Snow takes the money Sejanus had hidden in the picture frame and mails it home to his cousin Tigris. Snow gets permission to shoot the Mockingjays as he wanted. Lucy Gray tells Snow that the mayor believes she killed his daughter and is stalking and threatening her and the rest of the covey. She tells Snow of her intention to run away, and Snow, believing his part in the murders will soon be discovered, decides to go with her. Before he can leave to meet Lucy Gray, however, Snow is told that he passed the officer's test and can leave for officer school tomorrow. Snow meets with Lucy as planned, and the two of them set off on their new life together, stopping at the lake. In one of the lake houses, Snow finds the gun that he used to kill the mayor's daughter, the only evidence linking him to the crime. No longer does he have to run away. With the evidence destroyed, he can go on to officer school and the life he wanted. On the way there, Snow lets slip that he has killed 3 people, while Lucy Gray knows only of 2. She figures out that Snow betrayed Sejanus and flees from him under the pretense of gathering some food. Snow chases her with the rifle. She leads him to a snake and he is bitten. Blindly, he fires into the trees after her. Snow then returns to the base and is taken the next morning to officer school, but before he can arrive, he's dropped off in the capital and informed by Dr. Gull that he is being discharged and will study at the university under her. She never intended to waste him on the peacekeepers forever, and only did it in the first place to further the lesson she wanted him to learn about control and the way people really are. During the epilogue, Snow suggests that victors receive monetary prizes and food for everyone in their districts, as well as a house in the new Victor's Village, to further incentivize people to not only watch, but also to take part. And then you could have people willingly enter the Hunger Games in order to get a better life for their family and their district as a whole. Sejanus' family has adopted Snow and bought the apartment so they didn't have to move out. They have no idea of Snow's part in Sejanus' death and do all of these things for him since he was such a good friend to Sejanus. It's really messed up that they believe that he was Sejanus' friend and such a good person to him, and he just lets them believe that and take advantage of their kindness. Dean Casca Highbottom reveals why he hates Snow's father and thus Snow himself so much. Highbottom created the concept for the Hunger Games for an assignment and meant it only to be theoretical. He never intended to actually turn it in, but Snow's father submitted the assignment instead and the games were born, and Highbottom was forever credited with its creation. As his last act of the book, Snow poisons Highbottom by slipping rat poison into his drug bottle. And that's how the book ends. Snow basically gets away with everything. As we know, he later became the president of all of Panem, and he does all these horrible things and gets away with it until, of course, the Hunger Games trilogy comes along. But that is far in the future. Lucy Gray's fate is left up to interpretation or imagination as far as the book goes. We don't know if she survived, if she hid out in the woods and then waited until Snow was gone and then later reunited with her covey, or if he actually hit her when he fired into the trees and she died out there. We don't know that. But Snow basically decides that he doesn't like love very much because it made him weak and vulnerable, and if he's going to get married, he's going to pick someone on purpose that he despises so that they can never hold that sway over him or manipulate him in any way. Because he views love ultimately as a weakness, I would argue what he felt for Lucy Gray wasn't love at all, but obsession. The way he constantly thought of her as belonging to him, it was really creepy and disturbing. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the movie chooses to portray this, because this book relies heavily on inner monologue, and it's really a character study of Snow and how he came to be the evil president of all of Panem that we know from the original trilogy. From a movie standpoint, not able to get that internal monologue, I think that's going to be interesting as to how they choose to portray him. In the book, he does come across as a slightly relatable character in that he's not wholly flawed. He can feel some positive emotions and good things, but ultimately he is motivated only by his own self-interest. He only cared about Lucy Gray in the arena, not because he loved her, but because of what she could get for him if she won. What her victory represented for his own life, not her own. And he decided that he loved Lucy Gray and he was going to run away with her and they were going to go north and start a new life together until it became inconvenient, until he had another better way out, and he took it in a heartbeat without even thinking about it. And I just think it was pretty messed up. The ending of the book is abrupt and it kind of feels like it comes out of nowhere, but on the other hand, you've seen these sort of sociopathic tendencies from Snow from the very beginning, courtesy of his inner monologue, so I think it's going to be interesting, like I said, how they're going to portray that in film form. But that is everything basically that happens in terms of the plot. I think, based on what the trailer looks like, that it's going to be pretty accurate, but we will see what I think of it when I watch it. I might do a review on it, I don't know. But I do think that the movie will probably be better than the book. The book is really long, the pacing is kind of slow, especially at the beginning, and Snow is not the most likable person to spend time with, or to be in his headspace throughout the whole book. And so it's for some of those reasons that I think the film might be better than the book, and I'm really excited to see it. I hope that they do it justice in terms of staying true to the source material while also expanding upon it, because I still feel like we don't know a lot about Pan Am and how the world came to be the way it is now. We know that Pan Am used to be North America, but the characters act like that's all there is to the world. Either there is no other country or government in the world except Pan Am now, or they simply are so ignorant about the rest of the world and what's out there that they believe that Pan Am is all there is. I really don't know. I don't know how we got here. I'm assuming it's some sort of environmental, nuclear, possibly disaster, but I'm hoping that maybe the movie will go more into how exactly Pan Am came to be, because I'm curious about that part. And I had hoped, I think, that we would have gotten a little bit more of it in this book, but instead this focused more on the origin of the Hunger Games and not Pan Am as a whole. But I think that's all I have to say for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it helpful in some way, and we'll see how accurate the movie is compared to the book. So thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. I appreciate each and every one of you. My name is Rachel Terry. I am the author of 2 young adult fantasy novels, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!